Hedonism is the view that pleasure is what is fundamentally valuable, and all other things that we take to be valuable can be reduced to the element of pleasure. I'll try to lay out some reasons why we might accept hedonism and show how the view fails to live up to the hype, so to speak, given by its initial plausibility. So, what motivates hedonism? I think it's quite common for those of us just to begin to think about the tough questions in value theory to feel a strong pull from hedonism. After all, it has quite a lot of intuitive pull when we begin to consider what things are valuable and why they are so. It doesn't take much reflection to identify pleasure as a strong candidate for the fundamental source of value in our lives. Just think about some things that you find to be valuable. Tuna, red pandas, red pandas eating tuna, and all of the scenes from Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds. Just can't help but love the guy. All of these things and more seem to have something in common. They give pleasure of one sort or another. So one immediate advantage for hedonism is that it's so easy to find examples of things that are valuable and are also pleasurable. What a coincidence! Another advantage for this view is we start to consider the value question in more depth is that it reduces everything we value into one bite-sized concept: pleasure. This means that there's no long-winded procedure required to know whether or not something is valuable. We need only to ask ourselves, is it pleasurable? And be on our way. This theoretical economy also makes the view seem less ad hoc than theories that might try to construe value in terms of many unrelated things. Finally, hedonism appears to be a strong theory when it historically hasn't had many serious competitors. Hedonism has enjoyed a lineage going all the way back to ancient Greece and has been represented throughout the modern era and in contemporary philosophy. Few other theories can showcase such a history of supporters, especially with more recent popular views. So, what's wrong with hedonism? The first point I presented in favor of hedonism was the ease of examples connecting pleasure and value. However, as we dip into the issue a little further, we can run across some counterexamples to the thesis. Perhaps one of the most powerful thought experiments to run against hedonism is to imagine a machine that makes us feel pure pleasure all the time. Note that this is not Nozick's experience machine, although this example appears in the same chapter. Suppose that I find myself in possession of such a machine, and I bring it to you, asking if you'd like to plug it in. However, I warn that once you plug in, you're plugged in for the rest of your life, which will be the same length that it would have been if you hadn't plugged in. Not to worry though, since pleasure is what's actually valuable in life, it's obvious that the best thing you could do for yourself is to plug in. And don't worry about your friends and family. After all, you love them because it brings you pleasure, and that is all the reason, and we will be replacing that love with more pleasure. Of course, I have plenty of these machines back in my garage, and as soon as we get you hooked up, I'll hook them up too. Now, I don't think I'm stretching the imagination here when I say that most of us would probably rather not be plugged in this machine. What's more is, I think that this judgment will hold up under rational reflection. But surely, it's rational to do what's best for you, assuming it doesn't hurt anyone else. What then can explain our rational rejection of a lifetime in the pleasure machine? The most obvious way to go here is to just ditch hedonism altogether and go for another theory. But hold on. Why can't the hedonists just say that we're mistaken about the pleasure machine and that we should all plug in immediately? Recall that our initial justification for believing hedonism was a judgment about what's valuable. Life outside of the pleasure machine. If the hedonist wants to bite the bullet, then he or she finds themselves in the awkward position of accepting all and only judgments that support her view, in spite of the fact that there are other value judgments to consider. Still, perhaps, the hedonists can wiggle their way out of this one. They might point out that our lives are filled with a rich variety of pleasures, and that a machine that delivers a steady stream of just one sort of pleasure is not actually as good as going for the full experience. You wouldn't just eat tuna all the time. The best sashimi mixes in good tuna with good salmon, yellowtail, and other fish. This way is all well and good for the hedonist, but it shoots the view's second possibility point right in the foot. Hedonism seems like a great theory because we're reducing all these things that we value into one thing: pleasure. But if there's an incredible variety of pleasures and there's no clear relationship between them, or even clear rules about how each one works internally, hedonism doesn't seem to buy us much in the way of theoretical economy. Finally, I show that hedonism seems to have a promising theoretical lineage compared to as competitors. However, if the other problems that I've eliminated for the other theory are truly problems, then a history of support is not enough to overturn that, as well as modern-day competitors such as pluralism or desire satisfaction theories seems to stack up pretty well against hedonism when measured by the issues that I've talked about here.